I have to tell you genuinely, there is not a single day that goes by when I don't think, oh, am I really going to do this? You never quite get used to it.
Confidence. How to get my confidence back and find some joy in life again. Since menopause, I've struggled again with trying to find my confidence. I used to be a really confident person, really outgoing, very sociable, but it all seems to have gone. I think that's partly related to COVID, when people just stopped socialising, and now trying to get that back, trying to get people to socialise, to meet up, to do things. It just has all become a bit of a struggle. I mean, I do try and keep myself busy with different interests and hobbies. My work is fine, office administrator, it's fine, it's okay. It's just a job that I do because I haven't got the confidence to try and get myself out there to try and do something that I would really like to do.
Oh my gosh, Zoe, I really feel for you. And I really wonder whether you are on HRT. And the reason that I mention that is this is something that Gabby Logan and I talked about last week, is that when we lose estrogen from our brain cells, which happens in perimenopause, usually sort of mid-40s onwards, we can end up feeling flat and a real loss of joy. And it sounds to me as though that might be what you are experiencing. And people tend to think that replacing estrogen and HRT is just about hot flushes or help with sleep or mood. But actually, that regain of a sense of purpose and confidence and joy is a very real thing. So I really hope that anybody listening, and you particularly, Zoe, aren't going to the doctor and just being fobbed off with antidepressants, because that's going to numb you even further. And maybe you are on antidepressants, and that can also just be aware that that can be very mood lowering and can just sort of numb you so that you become desensitized, really. It takes away your highs and your lows, and you end up kind of feeling nothing. So many of the women who I talk to and have spoken to over the years in my work with menopause, in particular for the Menopause Charity and other organisations, many women have said that they've regained their sense of joy and their confidence and their purpose when they regain their hormones. And I think it's also worth pointing out that because we have estrogen receptors in our brains, it can be very closely linked to anxiety, and many women find themselves becoming agoraphobic, socially withdrawn, losing confidence. They give up driving, for example, because they no longer feel confident on the roads. So I don't know whether that's your situation, Zoe, but if that is you, or if that's anybody else who's listening, I really hope that this helps to perhaps spark a conversation with your medic, with your GP, your healthcare provider, as to what you can do about it in terms of replacing that lost estrogen. In terms of other things that you can do, I think one of the things you need to make sure is that you're getting plenty of the vitality promoting nutrients. So things like eating lots of protein gives you increased muscle mass, makes you feel stronger. Having energy giving nutrients like iron, for example. Many women become anemic. Obviously, having heavy periods, for example, can result in a loss of iron. Heme iron is very absorbable, which you get from red meat. Many of us are eating less red meat, so we're getting less absorbable iron in our diet. Egg yolks, another really good source of absorbable iron. Looking at things like B12. Again, if you're eating more plant-based foods, you might be deficient in vitamin B12, which is really important for energy. Even things like the healthy fats, I've talked about these before, the omega-3s, the EPA and the DHA, again, connecting to pathways in the brain that give us a bit of get up and go. And make sure that you're getting good sleep, because sleep is a really important part of our circadian rhythm, again, giving us that energy. And you might find that having a micro stressor in the morning to give you that tiny little cortisol spike first thing. We tend to think of cortisol as being the bad guy because it's the stress hormone, but actually we need tiny micro stresses to give us that get up and go first thing. So for me, I advocate cold showers. Now, don't panic. I'm not saying you've got to go full on and have a massively cold shower first thing. But what I do is I have my shower in the morning, and then at the end of the shower, I just turn the tap down to cold. and I swish my feet and I use the shower head going up my body, end up with it on the back of my neck, on my chest, on my face. It's very bracing. And I have to tell you genuinely, there is not a single day that goes by when I don't think, oh, am I really going to do this? You never quite get used to it. But I always do, because I know that I'm going to feel so much better for it. And it's that little micro cortisol stress that makes us feel energized. It gives us a dopamine boost an hour or two later, so that we start to have this surge of happy chemicals, the endorphins in our brain. And that, I think, could be something that is potentially very helpful. It's cheap and easy. Everybody can do it. Obviously, if you've got health issues or you've been told by your GP to avoid cold showers, then please don't. But for most of us, it's a very simple fix and a very easy way to give ourselves an emotional lift. Zoe, you talk about not really enjoying your job, about it just being a job. You're just turning up. And I think it's important to remember that there are choices, and actually having a really cold, hard look at the things that you genuinely love and are passionate about, that fire your thoughts and your emotions. Maybe there is a job switch. Or maybe if it's not necessarily in your paid employment, maybe it's something else outside of that you can spend more time being occupied with. And I know for many people who have a bit more time on their hands, then volunteering can be an amazing way to get back into the community and connect with a passion that you have, whether you're mentoring somebody else, teaching them, maybe you're taking up a new hobby, maybe you're linking up with other people, whether it's something simple like a book club or a knitting circle or a baking society or whatever it is, then there's lots of ways, I think, to find new interests and connect with people who might have a similar passion. I think it's really important as we age, actually, to drill down into what our passion is and our purpose, and think, why am I here? You know, what's it all about? What do I really enjoy? What would I miss most in my life? And that's often a clue as to what we should perhaps be doing more of. But I think midlife is also a time to perhaps feel a bit braver about what we might like to do, and realize that our life on this earth is finite. And how do we actually want to spend our second half? How do we actually want to spend our time? Who do we want to be with? How do we want to live? And sometimes we're scared to step out of the perceived narrative of who we should be or how we should be living, and actually realize that we do have options. All of us have options. Depends what your choices are. It depends what your priorities are, what you need in life. And I think taking some time to really sit and think about that really carefully, maybe talk it over with a friend or maybe with a therapist or a counsellor, but just write some thoughts down on paper and review it. Give yourself an appraisal, give yourself a life appraisal, and figure out how you want to spend the second half of your life to find that passion, to find that purpose.